Hello and welcome to part 2 of our Tkinter project number 2. In this video, we're basically going to be using databases with our GUI program. So why do we need databases? Well, let's take a look at our GUI program first. Here we have it. It's a simple registration form. Okay. Now, what's the problem? The problem here is that this registration form that we've made, if someone fills it in, where does the data go? Where does the data get saved? And this is a tough question because with something with this much data, with so many entry boxes, check buttons, and a text widget, we need a good way of storing this data. So this is where databases come in. Now, why we use them, this is something that will become apparent as we proceed in the video. Okay, seeing is believing after all. So I'll just let you see that. So let's just move on to the actual setup for all this. The first thing you need to do is download and set up a database. Now this part is something you need to do yourself. Okay, again, it's pretty simple. There are 3 ways of doing so. Either use WAMP, either use XAMPP, or either directly download MySQL database. Okay, MySQL is the type of database that we're going to be using. Okay, it's probably the most commonly used one. Okay, so you'll find that easily. Now, what are these? These are just software, okay? Software packages. You need to go and type WAMP download or XAMPP download or MySQL database download, okay? And you'll get the download links. Just download that software, run it, follow the installer, and I believe they'll ask you for a username and password. Okay, write that down somewhere because you don't want to forget it, okay? And just, once you completed the installer, you can come back over here, okay? And basically, once you're done with that, we're going to go and run the command prompt. Now we'll just install the MySQL connector library. So what is this for? Well, basically, you've installed your database and you have your Python program. Now, basically, you want something to basically connect these two. This library here, MySQL connector, is basically something that's going to connect your Python program to the MySQL database. Okay, and this is a very, very useful tool. Okay. So I already have this installed here, so it'll just give me a requirement already satisfied. But basically, this will run for you. Okay, pip install MySQL connector. So once you do that, you come over here and say import MySQL connector. This is MySQL.connector, sorry. Okay, so come back down here. And what I'm going to do here is create a connect function. Now, why am I creating this? Well, basically, what I want is to have a function that's basically dedicated to making the connection between the MySQL database and our Python program. All right. So it's just a few lines of code. Self.db is equal to self. What am I doing here? Sorry. It's MySQL dot connector dot connect. Okay, and here we enter a few parameters. The first one is called host. This is going to be localhost. Okay, this is something that is common for everybody because the database is basically local to our system. Okay, it's not on the internet or something. It's on our system, and the system, the place where it's installed, is basically called the localhost. Okay, so next is user. Just enter the username that you used. Okay, for your when you were installing the database. In my case, it's root, which is a pretty common way of doing it. And next is password. Again, just do the same thing that you did before. Okay. Now, there's an optional parameter actually called database. Now, what we installed here, WAMP or XAMPP or whatever you installed on your computer, it's not actually a database. It's more like a database management system. You can create many databases within that database management system. So you can actually have like 5 or 6 databases. And each of them have their own sets of tables and etc. etc. So basically, if you have a database which you've made by yourself, okay, you can actually do this by, you know what? Let me go ahead and show you how to do that. This here is the localhost, okay, 127.0.0.1. All right, and basically you have your localhost address. This is basically like the IP address of your localhost. So you just go into here, applications. Then you can see the bitnami php my module. Okay. Again, this is probably different for you if you install the MySQL database or something. So whichever technique you use to go ahead and open it up. Okay. And it should look pretty similar. Okay. Like there shouldn't be that much of a difference. Just watch here. Here's my password and username. This can take a while to load, but yeah, here we are. Okay, so here we have databases. You see this? I actually have something else called WordPress installed on my local host, so that's why there's an extra database over there. And I did this over here, my database and data. Both of these are databases that I created. And you can create them in a really simple manner by just clicking new over here. So I just click new, and it's loading. Here, you can just create a new database, just the database name, and over here you can enter a type. Just stick to the default type, okay? You don't need to worry about that. So yeah, that's all there is to it. You create a database over here, or you can create it through your Python program over here, okay? It's totally up to you on how you do it, okay? So let's just continue. Self.cursor is equal to self.db.cursor. So what is this over here? Well, basically what we just created is called a cursor. So what is the point of this cursor? Well, imagine that, this mouse cursor over here, I'm using it to select this and double clicking over here, right clicking, and using it to operate the menus. So like that, we have something called the cursor in MySQL. We're basically going to use this as our mouse to basically interact with the MySQL database. We can do stuff like execute commands, select rows and columns, and return some data, or we can do a whole bunch of things with this cursor. Okay, so that's what the cursor is here for. It's basically like our tool. Okay, it's like our mouse or keyboard that we're going to use to interact with the MySQL database. So with this, we're pretty much done. I'm just going to do this. Basically, I want to actually print out self.db. Okay, why do I want to do that? I want to basically print out the connection to see if it was successfully created or not. Or you know what? Let's do this in a simpler way. I want to create a try and catch block. Try and accept. What this does is, if you don't know exception handling in Python, basically it's going to try executing this code. And if there's an error, it's going to run this code block over here. Connection failed. So basically, if the connection is not made, instead of the entire program crashing, what's going to happen is that this print statement will execute. Okay, so let me do something like try changing this username or something, undefined. Okay, and let's try running this code. Okay, hold on. One slight thing we haven't added yet is a way to trigger this function. So I'm going to create a little button right here. Okay, I'll call it connect, and I'll link it to the self.connect function, pack it in. Okay, pad x is equal to 5, pad y is equal to 5. Great. And let's run this. Okay, now let's press connect. Connection failed because the username is incorrect. So I'll just change that back to root. Now look here. Let's just add another message over here. Connection succeeded. Okay. Okay, so let's run this. I'll press connect now, and look at that, connection succeeded. Great. All right, so now what? Well, let's go back to our database and take a look at this. I created this database called data over here, and where I was actually trying out some of the code. So this registration table over here. I'm just going to delete this first, okay? And yeah, let's just delete this for now. I'll show you how to create this now in front of you. And that's gone. Gone. All right, great. So basically now this is the data database. And first I'm going to show you how to connect to this database, all right? And later on in the video, I'll actually show you how to actually create the database as well, if you're interested, okay? Again, MySQL is a major topic, okay? I mean, SQL really, it's a major topic. So really, you need to learn this, I think. And you should actually follow some of the tutorials that I'll link in the description below. Okay, so for now, let's just go ahead and link to this database I've made, okay? It's called data. There you go. That's it. That's all we have to do. So let's just move this to the side as well. Okay, so now what? Well, the goal is now that once this cursor is made, we can now use this cursor to begin executing commands, right? So let's create a new function called, what should I call this? Submit, maybe? Okay. And this is where we begin writing our data to the database, of course, sorry. Okay, now one more function that came to mind. We need to create a table. Okay, I want to basically create a table within that database. How am I going to do that? Well, we'll call this create table, and I'm going to create two functions for this. Okay, sorry, two buttons. I mean, two new buttons. Okay, so one button is going to trigger the create table function, create table, and one of them will trigger the submit button. Alright, now I'm just going to take care of some alignment over here. Move that to the left, move that to the left as well, okay? And this one should trigger the create table function. Okay, and I want this one over here to trigger the submit function. Great. Yeah, that looks good, okay? Let's change these names over here. And there we go. So let's begin filling in these functions. So which one should we do first? I'll just leave a pass in there for now. I want to work on this one first. This is where I show you how to create tables in MySQL, okay, or using the MySQL connector library. So there's actually just one command we need, but it's going to be a big pain writing this. So let's just begin. Self.cursor.execute, okay? This execute function is like pretty much the only function we'll need for basic commands anyway. So you use this function to execute commands. Now the command is something that you need to type out very carefully. Okay. Normally what you would do is something like this. In create table, okay, create table, and the table name over here, like registration, regist data. Okay, let's call it regist data. And over here, then you begin in brackets. You begin writing something like first name and varchar. Okay, this is where I need to stop for a minute and give you a lecture. Okay, so first of all, what we're basically putting in within these execute parameters, we're putting in an SQL command. SQL is basically like a language of its own, in a sense. So basically, they're commands like insert, create table, destroy, sorry, I think it's drop, and then there's select, and there's inner join. These are basically commands, okay, that we're executing, okay, emphasis on that. So basically what we're really writing in here is SQL commands. Then the MySQL connector library basically goes to the SQL database and then runs those commands. That's basically what's happening. Okay, so if you were writing SQL, you would basically be using this exact same format. So yeah, this is the command name, create table. This is regist data, the name of the table, and over here within these brackets, okay, we begin writing the column names, okay, the column names for that table, because every table has columns, and this is the column name, and this over here is the column data type. Okay, each column has its own data type. Like maybe there's a column in which you want to put integers, maybe there's a column in which you want to put a really long piece of text. So this is just a first name, right? So I'm just going to give it 30 bytes. Yeah, basically 30 characters can go into this. 30 characters, okay? And like this, there are other data types like int, there's text, and like there are actually like a whole bunch of them, and you know what? Let's go ahead and take a look at those. Let me just pick something random, like, okay, and random. Okay, so let's take a look at these data types. There's int, there's varchar, text, date. These are the simple ones. And then there's a whole bunch of variations: tiny int, small int, medium int, and whoa, there's like a lot of stuff. Okay, and each of them are different depending on your conditions. You can even hover over them and they'll basically tell you what they're there for. Okay, each of them have a different size. Okay, it's all about optimization and efficiency. Okay, and as you can see, there's a whole bunch of extra stuff over here too. And how to do that from the Python code, that's something a bit complex, and something that you don't need to know for now, okay, if you're just doing Tkinter. Okay, so enough of that, and let's begin doing this properly. Okay, so that's the kind of problem here. Watch this. If I try putting all the column names within this is going to be super long. So I'm going to use a little trick here in Python and make this a multi-line string. And then, voila, you see? This makes things a lot simpler, trust me. Okay, so what's the next column? Last name, right? varchar. Again, we just need 30 characters. And what's the next one? If I remember correctly, it was address. And I want this to be a little longer, so I'll give this 100 characters. And what's the next one? Postal code. Postal code. And this is an int, by the way. Okay, what's the next option? Sorry, gender. And I'll make this an int as well. And what's after that? Hold on, comma. Okay, what's after that? Option. I'll make this an int as well. And what's at the end? The comments kind of thing, right? What did we call that? Let's just use text. And what was text exactly, by the way? Yeah, you can see that's really, really long. Look at that max length over there. Look at that max length. So text is basically what you use when you just want to make something really large. So I'll just call this comments, okay, and text, that type text. Okay, so I think we're done with this. Yep, looks good. So this command should now execute if I click the create table function. And it should create it back in that database. Let's see what happens. Honestly, I have no idea what's going to happen. Okay, so let's press connect first. Okay, connect it to the database. Good. And now create table. Okay, slight mistake there. Let's try and figure that out. After some poking around that I did, it turns out that for some reason option doesn't work as a table name, and I had to change this to choice instead. I don't know, maybe it's a reserved keyword or something. So yeah, just make sure that this is choice, not option. Okay, so if you run this now and connection succeeded, and create table. Now let's go ahead and take a look at that. Let's refresh this, okay? I don't see the refresh button over here, so let's just click on this again. Okay, and there you go. There's our regist data table. Okay, now if you've been following up so far, this may have looked a bit, complicated and everything, but trust me, this is all now going to be worth it. Okay, trust me, because again, this is a really, really powerful tool that you really should know. So yeah, let's get back to it. Okay, so let's just close all these. What are these? All right, great. So what's the next step? Well, the next step is to actually begin writing all this data to the regist data table. And by the way, we are not going to be writing this all the entire time, okay? And you know what? What happens if we try running this function again? Because we already have the same table. Let's try that. Look at that. Okay. This error arrived because we didn't run the connect function first, okay? So let's connect first and then create table. What's this? Okay, table already exists. Okay, so basically something that we learned over here is that we need to run the connect function first and then create table, and create table doesn't work if the connection isn't made. So you know what, let's just wrap this into a statement over here, a try statement, and except print table already made. And I know that there are two possible errors over here, so if you're really interested in doing that, you can make two different cases or something, or maybe try just using the cursor first and then make an exception for that. Never mind, so this is optional. Okay, so let's take a look at this. Self.cursor. Okay, hold on. I'm just gonna write this over here. I'm gonna leave it blank though, because I want to show you another technique that we can use to sort of simplify how we write the commands. I'm going to create a variable here called SQL, and then I'll basically write this SQL command into this. Insert into, and this, by the way, is another SQL command, and then I'm going to write the name of the table, regist data. Okay? And this is where I begin writing all the table names. First name, last name, address, postal code, gender, choice, comments. All right. And then comma down here. One second, hold on, multi-line string. Okay. Values. Okay. And this is just a way of Python formatting, by the way. These are placeholders. Okay, I'll explain in a minute. And how many of these are there? We have how many columns? 7. Okay, one more. And actually, wait, hold on. We have 7. Great. Okay. So this is the SQL string. Okay. Now I'm gonna make something new called values. And in here, I'm gonna store all of the values that we basically have from our entry widgets, from our widgets, from the check buttons, from the text. All of them are going in here. Bracket open, self.e1.get, okay, self.e2.get, self.e3.get. These are all the entry widgets that we made, by the way. Self.e4.get, okay, and what's after this? Because this is the first name, last name. This is the address. This is the postal code, and what's next? We made check buttons and ready buttons after that, didn't we? And self.r1. This is for the ready button. And hold on, I want to convert this to a string. The reason is that the self.r1, basically the int var that we made, it's basically an int. Okay, so I basically want to convert it into a string. Okay, so that it's compatible with this over here. So yeah, .get on this as well. And what's next? The check buttons are next. This is going to be a bit complicated. It's going to be like str self.c var1 plus .get plus self.c var2.get, and this is a bit weird, and honestly it's just the way I want to do it. Okay, maybe you can think of a better way of doing it. And basically what I'm doing here is, hold on, actually that's a terrible idea. What am I doing? I need to convert each of them to a string individually and then concatenate them together. So basically what I'm really doing here with the check buttons is that if, for instance, someone picked the first option, okay, so, and he didn't pick the other two, the value that's going to be stored in the database is 100. And if he picks all 3 options, for instance, it'll be 111. If he picks none of them, it'll be 000. So that's basically the kind of format that I'm going with over here. So what's left? Check buttons are done, that's done, ready buttons are done, great, and there's one more, they're the text, right? So self.t, hold on, what did I call it? Self.t1, right? So t1.get and 1, okay, and end. Okay, for those of you who don't know about the text widget, I recommend you watch my video if you want to learn more. But basically what this does over here is that from line 1 to the end, get all the data. That's basically what this is. Okay, I know this has been a really long video, right? And let's just get to the end of this. I'm going to go here now, and I'm going to write SQL here and values over here. So basically what's going to happen here is that values, you see all these values, okay, these 7 values that we have over here, they're all going to be placed into these, okay, into this SQL string. Execute will take care of that for you. So this is just what you have to do. Write the SQL string, write the values here like this, in this format here, and then just here, that's all you have to do. So self.cursor.commit, hold it, sorry, no. Self.db.commit. What is this? Well, if you used GitHub or something, this may seem a little familiar to you. But basically, what you got to do is that once you have actually said, okay, insert these into the table, it's sort of like you need to send them a final acknowledgement. Okay, you need to basically commit these changes to the database. So this is why you write this. If you don't do it, your changes will not show up. Okay, so there's no point. So make sure you include this after doing anything like deleting dropping, editing, or whatever. Okay, you need to include this. Now let's run this and pray this works, which it clearly doesn't right now. Hold on, what's the problem? Okay, I just noticed it. We're missing a bracket over here. Now let's try this again. Great, it runs. Okay, so let's fill in this data and pray that it works. So let's fill in this data and pray that it works. So coders, what am I doing? All right, legacy, XXX, something, ABC street, whatever, 123, 000, mail, option 1, option 2, okay, or something like random talk, etc., etc. Okay, now let's connect. Connection succeeded, and submit. Now I pray this works. Oh boy, it did not work. Hold on, what's wrong? Okay, turns out I did something even sillier. No brackets. Okay, no brackets. This is a string, not a tuple. Okay, let's do this again. Coders, legacy, XXX, ABC street. I really hate doing this, by the way. This constant errors. All right, random talk, etc., etc. Please work. Connect, submit. Still no. Okay, so it turns out that the mistake is right here. There is no comma between these two statements, okay, between the insert into and the values statement, okay. So yeah, let's run this again. Coders, legacy, XXX, ABC street, 123, 000, mail, option 1, option 2. Oof, I pressed that by accident, but luckily we had the exception handling in place. Okay, random talk, etc, etc. All right. Okay, I clicked submit and nothing happened. So that means I assume that the table was successfully created. Let's refresh this and see what happens. Okay, you can ignore that one over there. That's just something that was made while I was doing it. Okay, while I was actually testing it out. So this over here is actually the important thing. Coders, legacy, the XXX, ABC street, 123, postal code, gender, and choice over there. It's all worked out pretty well, actually. Yeah, pretty good. Look at this. Random talk, okay. So yeah. There is actually one mistake I'm actually noticing over here. Well, a few mistakes actually. For one, I think postal code and choice, they both should have been strings, because what's happening over here is that the 000 that we typed in for postal code is being converted to 0. That's because we made it as an int. So basically what's happening over here is that it's sort of treating 000 as 0. So that's why we have only the 0 showing up over there. Okay, same thing with choice. I believe we selected option 2 and 3, right? So it was 0, 1, 1, but it regards it as 1, 1. Okay, so I think both of these should have actually been text or varchar. Okay, like just varchar bracket 5 is enough. So yeah, we can do this as many times. Like, you can fill in the form 1,000 times, and the data will all be stored over here. You can retrieve it as well using MySQL. Look more into that later if you want to. So yeah, we're done with this video. This is a long one. So in the next one will be a lot simpler, thankfully. So yeah, subscribe, leave a comment if you want, to suggest something, or you have some kind of idea or something that you want us to do. So yeah, make sure to do that, and I'll see you in the later video, hopefully. Later.